There's more Midweek Madness this week in the Sky Bet Championship. We move on to Matchday, Game Week, whatever you want to call it, number 20. It's the 5th instalment of Midweek Madness. And before we get into these predictions, just a couple of shout-outs. Jamie Gold and Manish Thapar. You guys always give predictions on every one of my predictions videos. I really do appreciate it. Please continue to do so. And if anybody else would like to do so as well, I really do encourage it because I always like comparing how you guys do against myself. Usually you do better, but this week I actually had a pretty good week for once. And I can't stress enough for once because usually I am atrocious when it comes to these predictions. I'm too wild, too crazy, and I normally get very little right. It's probably because I have no rules. Well, actually, I do have one, and it's my golden rule, and it probably comes back to haunt me time and time again because, as always, I have to predict that Oxford always win. But hey, due to a called-off game with Plymouth, at least they didn't lose for another weekend. But we do still search that holy grail of a victory, and we come up against a side that's found a little bit of form, and we're creeping towards the relegation zone. I'm not worried. You're worried. It's time for predictions. And we start at Turf Moor for Burnley versus Derby County. Now, this one looks pretty cut and dry, doesn't it? Burnley looking very solid wherever they go this season, but particularly at home. It was quite surprising to see them actually concede a goal against Middlesbrough, but they soon came straight back into that one. And it's a Derby side that are really struggling when they are away from the baseball ground. And notice that I said baseball ground again. Chris Savage has pulled me up on this for saying he feels like he's gone back 25 years. Well, I'm an old man, Chris, and I will continue to call it the baseball ground. But there is growing discontent, and it's never really been a great love affair with Paul Warne for Derby County fans. But for every poor away performance or every game where you drop points, and that's the game against Sheffield Wednesday, backed out with a pretty tepid performance against Leeds away, the discontent just seems to grow. And I do wonder how much pressure Paul Warne is actually under, because from a neutral's point of view, you just feel like he's doing a decent job. Brought Derby up. They're in a pretty stable position. It's going to be a season where consolidation is the key, and he's doing that. So it must come down to style of football from the Derby County fans that they've never been particularly pleased with, and I get it. He's not always the most attractive football to watch, but isn't he doing a good job? And aren't you likely to be out of your depth when you play against the top sides in this league? But I'm cutting a long story short. I still feel Derby are going to continue to struggle in this game, and I feel that Burnley are going to come away with a victory, and I don't think it's going to be any surprise to see Burnley win this game. It's going for Burnley 2, Derby County 0. Luton Town versus Stoke City, and Luton coming off the back of a 1-1 draw against Swansea. It's a result I actually predicted in my predictions for once, and I don't think that's too bad of a result for Luton. I do think this Swansea side is pretty decent, but Stoke are also doing okay. They kind of flattered to deceive a little bit, Stoke. They kind of had a good run, and it kind of tailed off. I know that was a narrow defeat for them up against Sunderland in the game just gone today. But I just fancied Luton to win this one. I fancied Luton to get a rare victory and ease a bit of pressure on Rob Edwards. And I think that Luton are going to come away 3-1 winners over Stoke. Plymouth Argyle versus Swansea City. It's a massive game for Wayne Rooney. This game against Oxford obviously was washed out because of Storm Darragh at the weekend. Many Plymouth fans will feel like they've lost that golden opportunity to get a win on the board, because things do get tougher if you take that Oxford game away. They've got this game against Swansea. The next game is against Sheffield United away. And I have had a couple of comments from some Plymouth fans. Let's go over it. PAFC Louis saying, he didn't obviously comment before this Oxford game was called off. He says Rooney's got 2 games to save his job. Well, if that's the case, he's got 2 bloody tough games to save his job. An old friend of the channel, the Jana of Plymouth, has commented talking about what a massive game it would have been against Oxford, but also saying how they must win that game against Swansea as well, just to take the pressure off Rooney and the players. And it does feel like this is a must-win game for Plymouth, but I just don't fancy the Pilgrims in this game. I know how good you are at home park, and that usually does raise the spirits and raise the quality of play, that certainly from what you see away. But I rate this Swansea side quite highly, and I do think it's going to be a very difficult game, knowing the players that Plymouth have out as well. I think that they're really going to struggle, and I think the way that Swansea kind of take possession of games and boss games, I think that crowd's going to get really frustrated really quickly. And I, unfortunately, for my Plymouth followers here, I actually think that Swansea are going to win the game. And I'm going to go for, I'm probably being silly, right? I back Swansea far too much. They don't win nowhere near as much as I back them. But I do think they're going to win this one. I'm going to go for Plymouth Argyle 0, Swansea 2. Portsmouth versus Norwich is next up, and from what I've seen today, from today's scores, there can only be one winner in this one, and that is the boys in blue from the South Coast. A fantastic victory for Portsmouth today, convincing victory as well over Bristol City. Colby Bishop back in the goals, Josh Murphy in the goals again. I think he might have got an assist as well. Oh, every time he scores a goal, gets an assist, a little piece of me dies inside. But he is emerging with more and more quality every single week for this Portsmouth side. And if you're a Portsmouth fan out there, let me know how much you're loving Murphy at the moment. But they've got the goal scorers back. I mean, Murphy's just in red-hot form. Bishop's back. Callum Lang, always a useful player as well. And the feel-good factor is back at Portsmouth. And it's a perfect time to play this Norwich side, you would feel, who really, like a lot of sides, are a complete chalk and cheese to when they're at home to where they are away. I just watched them play a really miserable game against QPR. They were well beaten by the R's, much to my disappointment. And I just can't see how Norwich picked themselves up to get anything from this game. So I'm going to go for another win for Portsmouth, and another convincing win for Portsmouth. I'm going to go, as they continue to march up the table, I'm going to go for Portsmouth 2, Norwich 0. Sheffield Wednesday versus Blackburn Rovers.
Come on, Wednesday!
This is going to be a tough test for Wednesday. For some reason, they just struggle a little bit at home, a bit lacklustre. They were in their game against Preston today. Could have won it. Obviously had a penalty save, but did get back with the equaliser. But they are sitting quite close to the playoffs. So Wednesday fans will be thinking, if we can just improve this form, we will be in the playoff mix. But I need to see it before I start believing it from this Danny Roll side. There's far too much inconsistency in there for me. And they're coming up against one of the toughest sides in the league in Blackburn Rovers, who look pretty good everywhere they go at the moment, but look rock solid as well. Very predictable win against Hull away from home, so good job for them. And I think they're going to pick another point up on their travels at Hillsborough in this one. And I'm going for Sheffield Wednesday 1, Blackburn Rovers 1. Sunderland versus Bristol City is next up. You've got the Robins coming off that miserable performance on the South Coast. They've now got a bounce back, going all the way up to the northeast to see if they can get something at the Stadium of Light. You wouldn't fancy them to do so after this weekend. And I did get a message in from EFL Fantasy Josh, who talks about the hate against Liam Manning is unreal. And you've always kind of felt it. You felt like he's never been a popular choice at Ashton Gate. And you feel, but I just wonder how much pressure you feel Liam Manning is actually under, or whether the board are quite comfortable just for the fact that he does enough to win a few games here and there to keep you in with a sniff of the playoffs. But yeah, that hate really would have grown because that was quite a poor performance against, and poor result against Portsmouth. And they're coming up against the Sunderland side, who finally got a victory after quite a few games without one. Sunderland have bounced back, but the mood in the Sunderland camp is still good. You had Robert Walker here saying, don't worry about Sunderland, end of the year, they're still going up. We've got to be a bit more consistent, Robert, before you can start talking about automatic promotion. Far too many points dropped in recent weeks, but it was an important victory over Stoke that you had, even though it wasn't pretty and wasn't easy. And I don't think this one's going to be easy or pretty, but I'm going to back Sunderland to win by the same scoreline. I'm going to go for Sunderland 2, Bristol City 1. Leeds United versus Middlesbrough is next up. This could be the best game of the midweek round of games. Two high-flying sides, two sides doing really well. Leeds will back themselves to win every game in this championship season, but especially at home. They've come off a very, very easy victory over Derby County. But Middlesbrough are going well themselves. Good point away at Burnley. Could have easily won that game, had some chances to win it, and they will be a test for this Leeds side, and I think Leeds are in for another battle again. I think that it's going to be a game that Leeds will lose, but I don't think it's going to be a game Leeds will win. I think this is going to end up with a very high-scoring, entertaining draw. I'm going to go for Leeds United 2, Middlesbrough 2. Moving on to Wednesday's games now, and you've got Cardiff City versus Preston North End. North End pretty good against Sheffield Wednesday, but they were in the lead. There's some great chances to win that game. They didn't take them, ended up getting a point. Cardiff's game was washed out against Watford, so they should be relatively fresh going into this one. But it's difficult to really back Cardiff for victories at the moment. They've been struggling for those wins, and again, I feel this one could be another frustrating evening for the Bluebirds fans, because I think Heckingbottom side are going to go there and get another point. I'm going to go for Cardiff City 1, Preston North End 1. Hull City versus Watford. I'm expecting this one to be another entertaining game as well. What can Ruben Sellers bring to this Tigers lineup? I think he's an excellent manager, an excellent choice. I'm surprised it's taken so long for somebody to prize him away from Reading, because I certainly think he's a manager that should be managing at Championship level. And I actually think he's going to have an instant impact to this Hull City side. I do think Hull City are far too talented to be on such a miserable run. A Watford side who are good, but struggle away. Now, they'll be hoping that they'll be fresh after not playing at the weekend, but they're not such a strong outfit away as they are at Vicarage Road, and they usually don't end up winning away games. And I think this one's going to be a high-scoring game, and I think Hull are going to get a long-awaited victory. Hull City 3, Watford 2. Millwall versus Sheffield United. Look, Millwall actually lost a game. A rare defeat for Neil Harris's Lions. Typically low-scoring, typically difficult game, but they did lose to Coventry City, and they'll be disappointed about that one. They're coming up against a Blade side who themselves are virtually unstoppable. Such a hard side to beat, and haven't lost in a while themselves. And I feel that this one is going to end on as even. I don't really have too much more to say about it. Probably will end up with Sheffield United nicking this one as well, because they usually do. But I think that Millwall are going to get a point. I'm going to go for Millwall 1, Sheffield United 1. And I'm going to do something crazy in this one, and I'm going to back West Bromwich Albion to win. I've been called out by my namesake. Ian Goodwin has told me I've let him down. He even says, how dare you? The fact that I didn't back a draw in a West Brom home game. He's come up with the comment of the round, really, hasn't he? Saying that it's the draw thorns and goals only happen in another dimension. Well, I'm very sorry that I've let you down, Ian, and I'm going to let you down again, because I'm actually going to back West Brom to win this game. I haven't actually seen their game against Sheffield United. I'm filming this the day before. I'm doing Coventry a good disservice, because they've just had a fantastic first victory for Frank Lampard in that game against Millwall, and they'll be thinking, why can't we go to the Hawthorns and get a win? But West Brom are due, aren't they? They're due a victory. Come on, you baggies. You need to win a game at home eventually. West Brom 2, Coventry City 1. And finally, we have the Queen's Park Rangers versus Oxford United. Undoubtedly the game of the round. I am sure you will all agree. I was confident of this game before I saw QPR play against Norwich, and now not so much. I'm hoping that they've used up all their energy and skill and creativity and luck in that game, and they've got nothing else to give, because they were excellent against Coventry and Norwich in that game. They won every battle. They were excellent from set pieces. They outcompeted Norwich City, and my goodness, when you need a striker, up depth, teenage sensation, Algerian sensation, I believe, Collie, coming off the bench, coming out of nowhere to grab a brace. Could have got a hat-trick in this game. He was outstanding. And now all of a sudden I'm nervous, very nervous about this game, as Oxford's away form is miserable, and we sliding towards that drop zone with every round of games that goes. We really need something from this game. You know I have a golden rule, so I have to back my beloved Oxford United in this one. And I'm hoping as well, the fact we didn't play against Plymouth, we might be nice and fresh going into this game. We do have some players back, though. It's an Oxford side that have certainly got more attacking firepower than what we've had in recent weeks, with more and more of our attacking players returning from the sidelines from injury. So I'm hoping that we can go and put in a good performance against this QPR side. Hopefully it's a QPR side that might be a little bit after the Lord Mayor show, after what happened against Norwich, but they will be under no illusions that they need more points to climb away from that drop zone themselves. My goodness, this is going to be tough, as every game seems to be in this championship, but Oxford will prevail. Never give up, never surrender. Queen's Park Rangers 1, Oxford United 2. That's your lot, you greedy buggers, for this round of Championship football. That is my predictions. Take them to the bank, as always. You'd have done all right last week if you'd have took those predictions to the bank, but who knows whether that's going to become a regular occurrence. It is quite the bonkers league. But thank you, as always, for supporting me. Leave your comments down below. Leave your predictions. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Try and get me to 2,000 subs before the end of the year. That would be amazing. And above all else, just thank you for always supporting my channel. And I will see you very soon.
My work is done here.
What do you mean your work is done? You didn't do anything.
Didn't I?